Good evening. Welcome and thank you so much for joining me on the Private Property Podcast. I'm your host, Sibs Matiela, coming to you live and direct from the Sandton Convention Center because like we've been telling you for months, all roads lead to the property show. It is happening right now. And for those of you who couldn't make it or join us virtually from wherever in the world, guess what? We are bringing the experts to you via this podcast and you will not miss a thing. You will not be left out. No man left behind. Right now, we're talking about financing a property investment portfolio in South Africa, joined by a genius, Miguel Martins, who is the portfolio manager at Absa Bank Home Loans. Miguel, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. So you're making me blush. You can't see it because I'm wearing a red shirt. So that's
see. Yeah. I mean, I call you a genius because you're left-handed. And you deal with lots of monies to do big things with the monies because Absa, of course, is one of the proud sponsors of the property show. Tell me about the property show. What's going on? How are you guys doing? How are you feeling? What's the turnout like?
What a fantastic space. A lot of energy in the room. Walking in early this morning. And just immediately, it took me 15 minutes just to get across to the other side to where our stand is, and just people stopping and saying hi. Had a few property investors say thanks so much for that advice, that conversation we had previously. They were able to get that property, move into it, and rent it out. So, but really some great energy on the floor today.
Listen, how would you go about financing a property investment portfolio, either as an individual or a consortium?
So if you've played Monopoly before, right?
Yes.
It's about buying those first 4 little green houses before you get to the red house.
And not about stealing.
Definitely not. And playing fair, right?
Yeah.
But it really is about buying your first one, your second one, your third one. And it starts off as simple as that. So often people think about property investment, thinking that there's something quite different and quite unique in the financing. A home loan's a home loan. It depends how you use it. So most property investors get into property investment by purchasing or financing their first property investment, their first property. That could be a sectional title, a small house, etc. They buy it at the right price. They get a great rental from it, and that puts them in a position to go looking for their second property. And from then, over time, they build a decent portfolio. If they've bought well, they're getting good rentals on top of the costs, the monthly home loan payments. They're getting a great net rental, and that's how property portfolios start. From then, they might go into commercial and get some, and really graduate into the big leagues. But many are happy just to stay in residential with a portfolio of properties.
Do you think once you enter the market, it's like one of those once you pop, you can't stop situations?
Absolutely, and something I've been discussing recently with a couple of property investors is understanding your why. Because as a property investor, you're all about accumulating assets, about accumulating those green houses, right? And you stand back and you think, oh, I've got this fantastic portfolio. But often I challenge investors, think about what is your why? Why are you doing this? Where are you trying to get to? And what is that number or place, etc.? And the best investors understand their why, and they build their portfolios around that. And they're better investors for it.
What is the most common why?
People will talk about being able to fund, have that passive income, that they don't need to work for someone else. Yes, they're working for their tenants and they're managing their rentals, and passive income actually isn't as passive as we'd like it to be, but it definitely is.
You have to work. You actually have work to do.
You always have to work.
Yeah.
But I think as an investor or landlord in your own right, you work on your terms. And I think that's ultimately what people are looking to do.
Listen, what trends in the market or sector is Absa forecasting for the 2023-2024 year?
Sure. So if anything, we're in a place of flux. There's a lot of change going on. I think forecasts are a dangerous thing. Earlier this year, economists were forecasting, I'm talking about February, economists were forecasting a gradual increase in interest rates over 18 months. And there was this little thing happening in Europe, in Ukraine, and they were having this issue with Russia next door. Fast forward a few months, and all of a sudden, interest rates around the world are doing what they're doing. So forecasts are challenging. We know we're in an increasing interest rates in the environment. Interest rates will go up. We can debate by how much and where they'll stop. They will go up. And I think as investors, interest rates are your largest cost. They drive your home loan payment. So definitely worth looking on at that. What we are seeing from the likes of TPN and the data they're putting out is that the tenant market has become a lot more robust. More tenants are paying their rentals on time than they did 2 years ago in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
We're seeing that return. We're seeing a lot of robustness come back into the market. We're seeing rentals are now increasing year on year again. They were flat and slightly below zero for about 18 months there. So we're seeing it return to the market.
We didn't have money, Miguel. We were trying to keep our jobs and stay alive.
That's the reality, right? And I think any good landlord would have understood that and worked with their tenants, as many landlords did. So I think always in a state of change, things aren't necessarily getting easier, but I think as long as we stick to understanding the drivers of this market, what's happening to interest rates, what's happening to tenants, and their repayability, upskilling ourselves with good content, staying close to what's happening on the data, and maybe sometimes not paying too much attention to what the media says, and really putting your own opinion together. That, I think, is the trick to making it in any market.
And watching the Private Property podcast and going to the property show.
Of course.
Sponsored by Absa. Thank you so much. We love you. So what kind of things would you say someone now wanting to become a property investor, what kind of things should they be looking out for? Or take into consideration rather before they now enter on this journey?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, invest in yourself, invest in oneself. So grow one's knowledge of how the property market works, how to be a good landlord, what are the factors, understand some of the legalities around it. Get an understanding of that, because investing in yourself, you're gonna and that, it's more about time. It's not so expensive. A lot of this is freely available, and investors are often willing to share their knowledge and their insights with new investors. So invest in oneself, invest that time. And then probably a good place to start is sectional title. And sectional title investments it's difficult to find investments that actually cash flow positive in sectional titles, because there isn't that variability in the pricing that you'll find in freehold. But it's a relative safe environment, because there's less that can go wrong. You're not looking after the gardens, you're not looking after the security. There's a body corporate for that. You really are looking after the internal space of that sectional title. So it's not great investment advice once you know what you're doing. You need to move on from sectional title. But to get to understand how to market for a tenant, how to find a tenant, how to place those adverts on the likes of private property portals, those learnings will far outweigh the fact that a sectional title is not necessarily immediately the best investment.
Yeah.
So definitely start small. Find your first greenhouse, find your second greenhouse, and then build from there.
Sort of crawl before you walk, before you run.
Absolutely.
Before you become Usain Bolt.
Absolutely.
How would you ensure your portfolio to mitigate the risks that are involved in the current property market? Sure.
So when we talk insurance, let's talk insurance for a second. So make sure that your property insurance is in place. So if you're going to a sectional title, make sure that the property insurance that the sectional title has is sufficient and does what it needs to do. If you have a freehold, your own house, make sure that your building insurance is in place. One little known fact as a point of interest is that Absa's homeowners comprehensive insurance actually insures for tenants, so that if that tenanted property is not livable, it gets flooded, there's a fire, that Absa will put up that tenant in another property whilst they're fixing it, and they will cover the landlord for the lost rent.
I'm so sorry. Absa is literally making people's lives better right now. Please say that again. They need to hear it again. No ways. Are you serious?
It's a little known fact. Insurance is something we often no one wants to pay insurance, right?
No.
Until everything goes wrong.
It's a grudge purchase.
So once you understand the benefits that it actually does hold, you start to appreciate the value that it does provide. But other than that, the best insurance is knowledge. Understand the market to the best of your ability. Get to know other investors. Understand how they're managing their portfolios. And when I say portfolios, it can be a portfolio of one. But we're all learning. And there's nothing. My biggest investment in time is sitting with a group of other investors for a couple hours a month, where we share our challenges, and our stories and our insights with one another. That is the best investment in time. I'm always willing to share that with investors, and I really appreciate it when investors come to me with questions and we can learn from each other.
And would you say for you and for Absa, that's why the property show is such an important event to be a part of?
I haven't stopped talking since I arrived 3.5 hours ago.
Because you're sharing your knowledge.
I'm sharing knowledge, but actually when someone asks me a question and they say, Miguel, can I ask you a question? I'm learning from them in that question. I'm learning the nuances to the answer, because situations, there are consistent issues that you see throughout most situations, but every situation has its own nuance, its own dimension. So all is learning, and that's how we're learning is from other people, and that's what I'm really enjoying being at the show today. It's absolutely fantastic, and I've already said hello to a handful of people that I've only met on email or through a Teams discussion or on the phone, and today we're able to put a face to the name and say hi and how are you, and thanks for sharing.
So for people who haven't been to the property show and they're thinking, man, this sounds like a great opportunity for me, either as a business owner or as an investor who can now learn from someone like you, what would you say to them other than you should be here?
So for those who can't make it here today or tomorrow, it's listening to these podcasts, being open to them, investing the time. At some point, you start to feel that the value decreases in the podcast, and then sometimes you're listening to a podcast, you're listening to you're reading a piece, and all of a sudden, and there's a golden nugget that talks to you at that point in time. So it really is about investing the time. Often investors go into property investing, as a side hustle. It's something they do on the side. I would call that their hobby. Okay, and for example, they run their rentals and their costs through their personal check account, etc. It kind of makes sense when you have one. But as soon as you get serious about growing a portfolio, start understanding that that's a business and treating it like a business and aspiring to grow it as a business and becoming that professional. And you do that by increasing your knowledge, increasing your insights, connecting with other professional investors in the market, and just really taking that approach.
Miguel, before I let you go, what was that insurance called again? The one that cover the tenants and give the landlord a month's rent.
It's our basic homeowners building insurance. So at the Absa HOC, Homeowners Comprehensive Insurance.
Homeowners Comprehensive Insurance from Absa. If you don't have it, then I don't know what to say to you, because we all need it in our lives. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. It's been great to be here.
Absolutely. I wish you all the best in your last quarter. Let's finish strong in 2022.
Absolutely.
Ladies, gentlemen, thems, that's Miguel Martins from Absa speaking to me live from the property show at the Sandton Convention Centre in Johannesburg, South Africa. I will be back with more tomorrow. See you then.